Kevin Stefanski stood on the sideline as fans inside the stadium begged for Shedeur Sanders. Chants rolled across the stands like waves, echoing louder with every score in the Browns' blowout win. But no matter how loud they got, Sanders never left the bench. Stefanski later blamed distraction concerns, but those close to the team say it was fear. Fear of backlash, of media storms, of what might happen if Sanders didn't immediately shine. The emotional weight of that silence, in a game that already won, is now bearing down on the entire locker room.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
And it's not going away. The Patriots game won't just be about winning. It will test the Browns' ability to confront what they've tried to avoid. The longer they sidestep this conversation, the more it spirals. What was once a decision about timing has now become a referendum on leadership. Stefanski's hold on the team, Haslam's grip on direction, and Sanders' role in the franchise are all colliding in one high-stakes moment. And there's no more hiding on the sideline. The Cleveland Browns walked away from their 31-6 domination of the Miami Dolphins with a win on the scoreboard, but an even bigger loss in the headlines. Because while the defense was suffocating, the offense was rolling, and the score wasn't even close, the only thing anyone could talk about was who didn't play: Shedeur Sanders. Fans in the stands weren't chanting about the blowout. They were chanting for the backup quarterback, the guy with a last name that practically demands attention, the guy with national hype before he's even taken a single professional snap, the guy who stayed sidelined the entire game while Dillon Gabriel finished out a win that could have, should have, been a perfect opportunity to test the waters. But instead, nothing. No snaps. No appearance. Not even in garbage time. And that silence? It was loud. Kevin Stefanski stood firm. Post-game, he framed the decision as a move to avoid disrespecting Gabriel, who had played well. But even that explanation couldn't fully contain the rising tension, because behind the scenes, something much bigger is brewing, something that fans suspected, and reports are now confirming. This wasn't just Stefanski's call. Jimmy Haslam, the Browns' owner, reportedly pressured Stefanski to play Sanders. That alone changes everything. When ownership starts dictating football decisions, it's no longer just about game strategy. It's about control, power, public image. And this latest twist shows that the Browns aren't just dealing with a quarterback controversy. They're in the middle of an organizational tug-of-war. Haslam's push to get Sanders on the field wasn't just a passing suggestion. It was described as direct, tangible pressure, which means the coaching staff is no longer just balancing player performance. They're now navigating front office influence, fan demands, and media noise, all while trying to hold together a locker room that sees the storm rolling in just as clearly as everyone else. Because the second Haslam inserted himself into the conversation, the quarterback situation stopped being about merit and started being about optics. And that's where the Browns have really cornered themselves. They're so worried about the media frenzy Sanders might bring that they created a different frenzy by not playing him. It's a classic case of trying to avoid the fire and walking straight into another one. The team's internal fear of chaos, of what they're calling the nonsense, has now become the driving factor behind their decisions. And once that becomes a priority over on-field logic, you're no longer coaching a football team. You're managing PR, which, again, brings us back to Shedeur. The Browns didn't just sign a backup. They signed a storyline, one with enormous pressure, name recognition, and a fan base that spans far beyond Cleveland. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a player. He's a phenomenon. And you don't put a phenomenon on the bench and expect people to sit quietly. Fans were never going to ignore him. The media was never going to let it slide. And now, after a blowout where he didn't even touch the ball, the conversation isn't just about if he should play. It's about why he didn't. It's about who's really calling the shots. And it's about how long the Browns can hold this off before everything explodes. Inside the building, sources say the decision not to play Sanders was about protecting the current structure, about not upsetting team chemistry, about not giving into the noise. But ironically, the refusal to play him has created more noise, more division, and more speculation. It's also highlighted something that NFL teams hate to admit. The media narrative is no longer just a side effect of decisions. It's a factor in the decision-making process itself. And in this case, it seems the Browns are trying to control that narrative by avoiding it entirely. But the thing is, you can't avoid a storyline like this. You can't sit on Shedeur Sanders and expect people to pretend he's just another clipboard holder. Every week he doesn't play is another week of pressure building. Another week of camera shots zooming in on his face. Another week of talk shows, tweets, and articles wondering what the Browns are so afraid of. And now, they've backed themselves into a corner. Because the longer this drags out, the harder it becomes to just ease Sanders into the lineup. There's no casual moment left. The next time he steps on the field, it's going to be a moment. Capital M, eyes on him. Lights too bright. Stakes too high. And if that goes wrong, the team looks like they caved under pressure. But if it goes right, Dillon Gabriel becomes an afterthought overnight. That's the gamble the Browns are dancing around. And that's exactly why they're so hesitant to make a move. They don't want to light the fuse, but they already did the second they didn't give him even a single throw in a blowout. The Patriots game is looming, and everyone knows it. That game isn't just another Sunday. It's the pressure point. It's the fork in the road. If Gabriel slips even a little, if the offense sputters or the crowd gets restless, this could all come crashing down in real time. And if that moment comes, the Browns will have to make a decision that's been haunting them for weeks. Keep playing it safe and risk losing the locker room and the fan base, or unleash Shedeur and hope the storm that follows doesn't tear everything apart. Because there will be a storm, and the Browns know it. That's what makes this situation different from your average QB battle. This isn't just a question of who throws the better spiral or who has better command of the offense. This is about brand, attention, public pressure. It's about the uncomfortable truth that in 2025, a player's value isn't just measured by what they do on the field, but by how they move the needle off it. And Shedeur moved the needle. That's why Haslam reportedly wants him in, not just because of potential, but because of what he represents. He's box office. He's engagement. He's a walking headline. And whether that's a good enough reason to force a quarterback change is up for debate. But in Haslam's world, marketability counts for more than most would admit, which is why the coaching staff reluctance is turning into a slow-moving crisis. Stefanski wants control. Haslam wants results and eyeballs. The locker room wants stability. The fans want action. And right now, the Browns aren't giving anyone what they want. They're stuck in purgatory, trying to delay the inevitable, hoping that somehow they can keep winning without dealing with the elephant on the sideline. But every week they don't address it, the elephant gets bigger, louder, more disruptive, and eventually it's going to trample whatever quiet they've tried to preserve. That's why the Patriots game isn't just another chance for AW. It's a test of leadership, a test of vision, a test of whether the Browns are willing to confront the truth that's staring them down. Shedeur Sanders isn't going away, and the longer they delay his moment, the more chaotic that moment is going to become. So now we wait. One bad drive, one injury, one off-target throw. That's all it's going to take for the crowd to erupt and the cameras to start scanning for number 2. And when that happens, don't expect Stefanski to be the only one making the call, because Jimmy Haslam's already shown his hand. He's not sitting back anymore. He's not leaving the football decisions to the football people. He wants Shedeur Sanders on the field. And soon, the only question left is whether the Browns let the game dictate that moment, or if it's forcing the top down. Either way, the countdown has started. Let us know what you think. Should Sanders have gone in during the Dolphins' blowout? Is the franchise protecting their current starter, or are they just scared of what's coming? Who's really making the decisions here, Stefanski or Haslam? Hit that like button if you're watching this drama unfold like it's HBO on Sundays. Subscribe if you want more of these deep dives into the NFL's most chaotic headlines. And don't forget to share this with someone who swore the Browns were finally done being dysfunctional. Because, let's be honest, they never are. And just like that, the Browns aren't even in control of their own storyline anymore. This isn't about what happens if Shedeur Sanders plays. It's about what happens now that everyone knows he's going to. Because the secret's out. The denial phase is over. Jimmy Haslam's influence is no longer some whispered rumor. It's out in the open. The owner wants Sanders on the field, and the coach has been forced to address it. That means the entire dynamic has shifted. It's no longer speculation, it's expectation. And that is a nightmare for a coaching staff trying to maintain control in a locker room already walking on eggshells. Kevin Stefanski is now in the worst possible position a head coach can be in, making decisions under pressure that look like they're not his. The second a personnel move feels like it came from above, it undermines the entire authority of the coaching staff. It tells the team that the chain of command is flexible, and when push comes to shove, performance doesn't matter, PR does. And that's the heart of the Browns' current dilemma. This is no longer a football decision, because if it was, Sanders would have at least gotten a few snaps in a 25-point blowout. If this were purely about development, about easing a young quarterback into live NFL action, you'd give him that taste during meaningless fourth-quarter drives. You'd take advantage of the low-pressure reps. You'd do the obvious, smart thing and avoid all this noise. But the fact that they didn't do that, that tells you they're scared. Not of Sanders failing, but of what happens if he succeeds. Because if he walks onto that field and looks even remotely like the guy fans and media think he is, that changes everything. The locker room dynamics, the media narrative, the quarterback room, everything. It forces decisions that the Browns are desperately trying to delay. They want time. They want space. They want to develop him quietly. But they signed a player whose name alone eliminates that option. Shedeur Sanders doesn't come with a grace period. He comes with a camera crew. And that's not a knock on him. He hasn't said a word. He hasn't stirred the pot. He's done exactly what he's supposed to do. Sit, learn, support. But the attention that surrounds him isn't something you can coach around. It's baked in. His last name guarantees it. His potential multiplies it. And the Browns' hesitation only amplifies it. They could have taken the air out of this thing weeks ago. One drive in garbage time. One appearance. Let the moment pass. Let the novelty wear off. But now, they've let it swell into a spectacle. And the Patriots game isn't just a game anymore. It's a proving ground. Not just for Sanders, if he plays, but for the entire Browns organization. Because whether they like it or not, every snap is now under scrutiny. Every play call, every substitution, every sideline shot. It's all being dissected through the lens of when is Sanders going in? Even if Dylan Gabriel plays well, it won't be enough for some fans. That's how fast the narrative has moved. The standard has changed. It's no longer about managing the offense. It's about delivering something new, something electric, something different. And that's not fair to Gabriel. But fairness left the building the moment Jimmy Haslam got involved. What's especially telling here is how clearly the team is trying to control the public narrative. From media silence to carefully worded pressers, you can feel the organization trying to hold back the tide. But what they're really doing is stalling, trying to delay the inevitable shift everyone sees coming. And here's the thing about inevitability. It doesn't wait for convenience. The Browns think they're protecting the team by keeping Sanders off the field. But in reality, they're creating a pressure cooker. Every game he doesn't play turns up the heat. Every week he's on the sidelines adds to the tension. And eventually, that pressure is going to explode in a way they can't control. And once that happens, the Browns aren't managing a team. They're cleaning up a mess. This is the price of hesitation, of trying to finesse your way through a situation that demands decisiveness. You either lean into the moment and own it, or you get swallowed by it. Right now, Cleveland is doing neither. They're just waiting, hoping the noise goes away. But here's what they don't seem to get. The noise is the story. They've already lost control of the narrative. Fans are talking. Media is circling. And ownership is making moves behind the scenes that scream urgency, not patience. So what happens if Sanders starts against the Patriots? Or even just comes in mid-game? Well, that depends on how he plays. Because the pressure he's stepping into isn't just from the defense across the line. It's from an entire franchise teetering on the edge of a full-blown identity crisis. If he struggles, it's egg on Haslam's face. It confirms every fear the staff had about media distraction and rushing a player too soon. But if he thrives, if he even flashes, The Browns have a new QB1. Full stop. There's no going back. The fan base will demand it. The headlines will write themselves. And the locker room will start reshuffling around him in real time. It's a point of no return. And that's why the Browns are trying so hard to hold off. Because they know that once Sanders gets that moment, the franchise flips into a different mode. And they don't know what that looks like yet. But the reality is, it's coming anyway. Because this isn't just about a quarterback. It's about the future of the team. It's about whether they're going to keep pretending they can micromanage every PR angle or actually step up and make a bold move. Cleveland fans aren't asking for perfection. They're asking for clarity. They want to know where this team is headed. And if the Browns keep ducking the moment, all they're doing is feeding the perception that they're afraid of their own potential. You can't run from that forever. So when the next whistle blows and the cameras are back on Stefanski, on Gabriel, on Sanders, don't think for a second that it's just another Sunday in the NFL. This is a game where the Browns either take control of their own story or let it bury them. What makes this whole saga even more surreal is how the Browns, yet again, have taken something simple and made it unnecessarily complicated. Nobody asked them to name Shedeur Sanders the starter. Nobody demanded he leapfrog Dillon Gabriel overnight. All people wanted, all that was asked, was to give the guy a chance in a blowout, a couple of drives, some meaningless fourth quarter reps with the second unit, just to see where he's at. Basic quarterback development, especially for a rookie with undeniable upside. But the Browns turned a standard personnel moment into a full-blown organizational stress test. It's like they forgot the rules of the league they're playing in. This is the modern NFL. You don't get to sit on a quarterback with a famous name and a built-in audience and not expect backlash, especially when fans are literally chanting his name in the stadium and national sports talk shows are dragging the head coach for keeping him benched. That's not a minor storyline. That's a public meltdown just waiting to happen. And instead of getting ahead of it, instead of managing it, Cleveland tried to mute the noise by pretending it didn't exist. They acted like they were above the drama. Like they could shield Shedeur from the media whirlwind by just keeping him invisible. But newsflash, invisibility is a story when your last name is Sanders. Every second Shedeur rides a bench, the Browns look more afraid of him than confident in their own plan. That's not a great look for a team trying to sell a long-term vision to its fans. Because it signals fear. It signals indecision. It signals disarray. And when you combine that with reports that Jimmy Haslam has already started putting his thumb on the scale, it paints a picture of a franchise spiraling into dysfunction again. Think about what that means from the player's perspective. You're in the locker room. You're watching your head coach insist on stability, while the owner is allegedly demanding change. You're hearing the fans boo a 31-6 win. You're watching the backup quarterback become the focal point of national coverage, without even taking a snap. That's not just noise. That's chaos. Controlled chaos for now, but chaos nonetheless. And at some point, something's got to give. Let's talk about Dillon Gabriel for a moment. The guy isn't playing badly. He's doing exactly what's being asked of him. But none of that matters when the crowd wants fireworks, and the coach keeps sending out sparklers. It's not about Gabriel being bad. It's about the Browns looking timid, playing not to lose, protecting the status quo, instead of leaning into the shift that everyone sees coming. Because the longer they wait, the more combustible this gets. This isn't just about quarterback play anymore. It's about leadership, direction, vision. The fans can smell indecision. The media feeds off of it. And ownership? Well, Haslam doesn't exactly have a track record of patience. So, where does that leave us heading into this Patriots game? On the edge. This game isn't just another shot at a win. It's a pressure test. Every drive Gabriel leads will be weighed against the question, what would Shedeur have done? Every misread, every stall drive, every field goal instead of a touchdown will be louder than usual. Not because of the scoreboard, but because of the shadow standing on the sideline holding a clipboard. And the second that shadow becomes a starter, everything changes. That's the part the Browns seem unwilling to deal with. They're treating Shedeur like a light switch they can flip on at the perfect time. But in reality, he's a fuse. The moment he's activated, there's no going back. No more silence. No more hiding. He either becomes a guy or he doesn't. But either way, the Browns have to own it. That's the part that scares them. Because if they start him and he flops, they get roasted for giving in to the hype. But if he plays well, they have to admit they waited too long and potentially fracture their locker room in the process. And that's what happens when you manage your roster based on optics instead of honesty. The Browns tried to protect themselves from a media circus by holding Shedeur back. What they've done instead is create an even bigger one. And now, every move they make is going to be dissected like it's a playoff decision, because they let it get to this point. They fed the suspense. They refused to rip the Band-Aid off. Now they're stuck with a quarterback controversy that was entirely preventable. What makes this so frustrating is that this isn't some low-stakes situation. This team is good. The roster is solid. The defense is terrifying. The window to win is open right now. And instead of maximizing that window, the Browns are spinning in circles around a quarterback decision they're too scared to make. They're letting politics and perception choke out momentum. Because make no mistake, if Shedeur gets the nod and delivers, the entire energy around this team changes. The fans rally. The media jumps on the bandwagon. The organization gets to say, "See, we had a plan all along." But if they keep stalling, keep making decisions from a place of fear, they risk turning a moment of promise into another cautionary tale. And let's be honest, Cleveland's had enough of those. So now the stage is set. The Patriots are up next. The pressure is boiling over. And the franchise is staring down its next chapter, whether it wants to or not. Will Stefanski finally listen to the noise? Will Haslam pull rank and force his hand? Will Shedeur finally get a shot? Or will the Browns double down on delay and let another week pass them by? Drop your thoughts below. Should the Browns start Shedeur against the Patriots? Is this still Stefanski's call, or is ownership already in the driver's seat? How much longer can they wait before the fan base turns completely? If you're as locked into this drama as we are, hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss the next twist, and share this with someone who's been yelling "Start Shedeur" since week 1. Because whether he takes the field or not this weekend, the countdown is over.